yes, people need to trust themselves. Your thinking, feeling, this is like part of your internal reaction to whatever the person or situation is for a reason. It just doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, just doesn't happen for no reason. People need to trust themselves more. Stop being what other people think you should be and start being you.
Good day, listeners. You are listening to CJ Miller, and this is the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is going to be my last interview podcast until July. I don't know if you've noticed this. If you're following me on YouTube or you're listening to my podcast, you'll know that the month of June is going to be my Doodle Book Club. And I'm going to explain that briefly, and then I'll bring on our guest. But the Doodle Book Club is where I am going to read a chapter from my book, The Spiritual Artist, while you doodle. So I'm encouraging people to go out and buy a book or a journal, sort of like the one here, and just flip open a page. I'm encouraging people to bring some crayons because I want you to use a lot of color, and you're just going to doodle while I read. It's like 15 minutes. So it's a 15-minute spiritual practice, a spiritual art practice that you can do every day for the month of June. And where I got this idea was from my most recent retreat. And so I'm excited because I am bringing in an artist who I had such wonderful conversations with at my most recent retreat. So I'd like to introduce you to Kimberly Morrow, and she is, I would call, a lifelong artist. She might not claim it, but she is, because she's done graphic design work, she's done medical design work, she's been a teacher for years, and she loves everything. So I can't really put her under a category of like mixed media artist. She's mentioning printmaking. She does watercolor. She does alcohol ink. So good morning, Kim. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm thrilled to have you here. I just want to jump in because I know
I
that
am
you.
so sorry. The lawn guys just showed up at my house.
No, I don't hear it. So,
Oh, okay, good. Because my dog's losing his mind.
how funny! And you see, and I'm not hearing it. So we were just talking about how there's constant interruptions, and I have a lawn guy at my house, and and
So,
well, it's so funny. I don't hear it though. But we were talking about how life is so noisy anymore, right?
right.
Which
Where do you go for peace? Where do you go for, where do you go for solitude?
right. And I think that and that's why I share with my listeners, I love going to Santa Fe because, but you know what's funny? Recently in Santa Fe, if I stay in a certain neighborhood, it's just as noisy. It's hard to, I have to stay out, like out in the country. That's my ideal, is to stay in an art studio that's out, surrounded by nothing.
I have some property with my fiance up in Maine, and it is so peaceful. And you listen to the loons on the lake, and it's like you have thoughts and feelings and realize things that you don't in a noisy, everyday hustle bustle world.
Right. It's funny. I'm thinking about, I can hear your dog bark and I hear my guy with the lawn. I hear the fence. And I was thinking about, this is actually perfect because this is kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
And sometimes I think that spirit brings you exactly where spirit puts you in a life situation to talk about something or to address something. And so I want to share with our listeners why I brought you on the show.
okay.
Kim is incredible energy to have at my retreat. She's so much fun. And one day we had this wonderful conversation. We stood off to the side and talked about what it means to be an empath, right?
Yes.
And Kim said, well, I'm an empath. And I was like, well, I'm an empath. And so tell me this. Let's talk about this. What does it mean to be an empath as an artist? Obviously, we have all this stuff coming at us, right? We
Right.
have dogs barking and noise coming at us. So what do you think? What do you think an empath is, Kim?
Well, I think it's a sense, just like your sight, your hearing, your touch, your taste. I think it's just one more sense. And I think everybody has it. But just like some people have great vision and some people have phenomenal hearing, or some people can smell things really delicate, I think some people, their empathy, they're picking up on the other people around them, is just a little sharper, a little more just naturally attuned to feeling the others around them. Because, I mean, everything alive is energy, and everything that's energy is connected. So I think when you're an empath, you pick up on the emotions, the feeling, the energy of the person. For me, they have to be close to me in proximity, but you pick up on sort of their internal clock, their internal weather storm of it's going on. Like whatever their weather conditions are, like emotionally or feeling or thoughts, especially if they're very profound, powerful thoughts. You'll pick up on the feeling of it. And I didn't realize that everybody wasn't like me. Like, I didn't realize this growing up, and was always just told I was too sensitive,
Mm.
or wearing my heart on my sleeve, or, your feelings get bruised too easily, or why are you so shy? Why are you so backwards? Why why don't you socialize more? you know um I was told all growing up, you're the most backwards kid I ever met.
Ah.
There'll be a whole playground full of kids and you'll be reading a book in your room. Or,
Oh.
and but it was scary for me, because not everybody is nice. Not everybody looks at you and immediately has open thoughts like, oh, you know, who is that? I want to get to know them. Let's go check them out. Maybe we'll be friends. Not everybody is like that. Someone look at you as, ooh, that's a new target.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Little kids on the playground. They'll look at you and they'll just automatically be like, how can I make that person miserable? Because that's fun for me. And I don't understand people like that. And I don't, but I would know it. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do with it. So I would just retreat away from a lot of people. And I always thought I was shy. I always thought I was horrible at being a human. I always thought I was something wrong with me, and I would repress it and push it down. I mean, I here in New England, and grew up with immigrant parents and family. My father's from Ireland, my mother's family's from Scotland. Um, Very conservative, very stiff upper lip, very, no touchy feely stuff by any stretch of the imagination. So, I put on a good face and was the person that, mirrored the person that they would want to see, and just sort of kept all that stuff squished down.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
the oh, you too.
Kim, you've just said so many things. I'm just like, wait a minute. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about,
And
I mean, just the tendency to squish yourself down
yeah,
and be what they want. I mean,
yes,
we could spend this whole podcast could be about that tendency for all of us to just
fit their
to
mold.
fit their mold.
Yeah. And because that's a safe place to be. You won't get picked on. You won't get badgered with questions. People just let you live and let live if you fit their mold. But what if you don't fit their mold? They're happy, but are you happy?
Yeah. No, I mean, and
And
I think a lot of artists can relate to that. A lot of artists, they pull inward
yeah,
and get quiet, and it's about being what people want you to be. And so, like we're on the retreat, so much of what I'm trying to teach people is to be who you are, you
right.
know.
I loved that. I loved that so much.
Well, because we're taught not to. We're so much directed away from our inward self. And
Yes.
you said something else earlier that I just want to pick up because I loved it. I spent my high school reading. Like literally, I
Mhm.
would be sitting in a classroom, the teacher would walk out, people would be fighting, spitballs would be flying, and I'd be sitting there with my head down in a book
Yes.
because
Yes, very much so.
it was a safe world, right? I could
Oh,
read the
yeah.
book and I'd be safe.
Yes, you would. I know that place. Yes.
Yeah.
And
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 it's
it's a
hard.
place, yeah, and it's a place you can control. And it's a place you want to go to. And it's quiet. And you're not getting like the jangling of other information. And and
Yeah.
crowds are sometimes hard for me,
Oh yeah.
especially if there's a lot of big feelings and emotions.
I don't like crowds. I haven't been to a concert since I was 21. And I know people love concerts, and I'm not bashing people that love concerts. I'm just saying, because I'm like you talk about, I just feel it. I feel all that energy around me. And it's scary. Part of it's scary, but part of it's just almost an overload. It's like an
Right.
overloaded circuit, right?
Yes. If it's a joyous, like mom joyous movement of people, I'm okay with it. But if it's something like a protest, or where people are very upset, usually almost always rightfully so, about something, and there's a lot of hurt, a lot of negativity, a lot of big negative feelings. And negative feelings aren't always bad. Negative feelings are often an impetus for change. But it's hard to be around a lot of people who are having them. It my insides like get very churny, and I almost get nauseous. Like
Mhm.
it's just a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah, I totally
Um,
relate. I think when we were talking at the retreat, I think you were saying, I think what led this to is you said how comfortable you felt in this room of people, and how they
yes.
were all such a nice group of people. Um, and I will share that with our listeners. When I plan a retreat, I make sure that I talk to everybody before they commit to coming. Um, I even had someone call me recently and she said, "Oh, I looked at your website and I looked at your podcast and I'm ready to come." And I said, and she said, Here's your deposit." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. I have to talk to you."
Yeah, yeah. And I appreciate that so, so much, because it was wonderful. It was so like unbridled and open and free, and just such a relaxing, good space. It was wonderful.
Well, and it's hard because it's hard to prejudge that. You have to talk to
Oh,
people.
sure.
And I'm trying to create, I'm the gatekeeper, right? I'm trying to keep an environment where everybody is open and willing to try new
No.
things. So do you think, I want to ask you this, this is a big question because I hear empath a lot, folks, when I'm interviewing people. So many of the people I interview are mentioning and they relate to that term. Do you feel that you take on the feeling of the person with you? Do you take on their baggage?
Sometimes I'm by no means psychic or anything like that. Um, so if somebody is just profoundly hurting, just profoundly hurting, I will I will feel it. I will feel all the sensations you get when you have like emotional pain or trauma. But I won't know why. I won't know what caused it in them. I won't know I won't know anything about it, other than I know this person is feeling this way. Um, and sometimes I have to move away from it. I feel terrible. I feel like I should be doing something to help them, be like have some magic words or profound insight, or just say something to or do something to help them. But sometimes I have to disconnect myself from the situation because sometimes it can be too much. There's been times when I can feel my eyes welling with tears. And I don't know why. I mean, I know why I feel it, but like I don't know what it is in this other person. But on the flip side, with people who are just filled with joy and happy and exuberance, well, they're like contagious.
Right.
They just like, and I feel it too. And like, that's great. And then I'm on their face like an octopus. Like, I like them. I want to stay with them. And
Well, but it's funny. It's interesting. How do we? I think it's important. I've met people that felt like they were out of control with that receiving of emotion. And I think it's important. That's what I would like to share with our listeners. For me, I visualize if I'm in a situation like that, I'll visualize like a dome, a dome or a glowing dome over
yeah,
my entire self that deflects, sort of like a Teflon. I call it my Teflon dome, right?
right.
That reflects that energy out because we can't fix everybody, and
No,
we can't feel for everybody. I mean,
no.
or let me rephrase that. We can have empathy, but we can't take it on. It will
True.
destroy. It will destroy us.
Very true. I will start sending like okay, this is my own belief, but like everything living has an energy field. And we have an energy field that extends slightly beyond our human body. And some people call it an aura, sometimes people call it a halo, whatever. And I try, I don't know if it does anything, but I try to extend healing and comforting energy towards this person. I ask the light and the love and your creator, whoever, like you have a dash in the book, to fill
Yes.
in the blank, um, to come and bring healing and loving energy to this person. I try to send it to them through me. I, if I if it helps, yay. And if it doesn't, well, they're not any worse off than
Right.
they were before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but maybe
So
it's something.
no, I do the same thing. I'll visualize even globally. I have an exercise where I help people visualize globally, but I want to ask you, how does this inform your art making? So,
Oh, that's interesting. Um, I was in a dark place for a while back in Texas, and my internal environment as a result was very um unhappy. And my art from that time period is very dark. No, I tend to use a lot of vibrant, bright colors. The art was very muted, very gray, very dismal, very lots of charcoal, lots of um screaming faces, like to try and like excise out what's inside by like purging it vocally. Lot of stuff that's really very unlike me. Um, so my internal environment tends to take the imagery in my art. So, and a lot of that internal environment is affected by the internal environments of people who are around me. And so sometimes you have to become a hermit to like realign yourself, like reboot your innards, like
yeah.
and come back. But for sometimes I'll pick up and I'll be by physically by somebody for an extended period of time, and they're just interesting to me. Like, I'm not psychic, so I don't know what's prompting their environment. But some people are like a roller coaster. They're unhappy. Oh, this is great. Yeah. Oh, this is great. Oh no, I don't like this. This is great. And and that's almost like the lights and the darks, the push and pull of warm and cool colors, and it can kind of translate in that way. So people can be really interesting without being like um a negative aspect to be near. Like they're just sort of, huh, wow, you're on a journey today. Like it's very interesting like that.
So so it helps you. You said it helps you obviously to use that emotion in your art. You used it
Yes.
almost as a sort of a therapy when you were in Texas or when you're having that
Yes.
dark period of your life. Have you ever found that you're working on something and you're in a classroom and you have to move away from other people or
Yes. Yes. Yes.
is that a yes?
That's a yes because okay, there are people who are very giving of their energy, whether they're aware of it or not. They're very giving of their energy. And there are people, and I don't know what or why, but they need other people's energy to get themselves back up to a normal plane. So they will get near some people who are very just their energy is coming off of them and they like drain it.
Mm.
I've heard this referred to as like energy vampires. I've heard it called different things. I'm kind of just observing and reasoning my way through all of this as I age and stuff. But I'm a very huggy person. I believe in hugs. I believe in like squishing my affection for the person, like into their bones and their muscles. And I just want to like push it into them so like they know and they feel that they're loved and admired. And there's some people I don't hug anymore because like I feel like very just like it's all gone. Like after I've hugged them, it's almost like I gotta go take a nap. Like it's a very different experience than like if I hug just a friend or something like that. And there's nothing against these people. They're perfectly decent, normal, nice people. It's just it's like a diabetic person might need insulin. This person is needs the energy of others to bring themselves up to where they need to be. And consciously or unconsciously, they just draw it off them. And I've found a lot of times people who are like that are complainers. They don't like whatever. Oh, this is a stupid lesson. This is a dumb thing. This is a blah, 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 blah. And, gripe, 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 gripe. And it seems like the more they gripe, the more they're pulling that in.
Oh yeah, they are. I believe that.
And, um, and I've had to move away from those people. Well, I mean, do you find that? Do you find that there's people that you just have to kind of walk away from?
Oh yeah. You know what's funny? I think we talked about this maybe at the retreat. It's hard for me to be on. Everybody thinks that I'm so outgoing, and I am to a certain point.
Yes.
And then I start getting tired. I just need a break. I need to be away from people. And I really do it. Like you were mentioning earlier that I like to be alone a lot.
Yeah.
And so on a retreat, of course, you're there, people come early and you're there all day long and they want the whole day because they want to get their value out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, I gotta go take my nap.
Yep. Yep.
And
That's why
and
art shows are so hard for me. Not that I mean, there's a lot of physical work and stuff, with setting up an art show, but it's the being on all day, smiley, smiley, pretty, pretty, shiny, shiny,
oh
come buy my
yeah, it's
stuff.
hard. It is hard.
And
I did a show last Christmas, and they wanted me there at like 10 a.m. or no 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Well, the traffic was really dead in the afternoon, and so I mean really dead, like nobody
yeah,
there. And so I went up to the owner. I was in a store. It was a pop up, and I said, "Hey,
okay.
is it okay if I leave early?" And she was like, "Oh, da da da." She gave me a hard time, and I'm like, why do I need to stand here? And I think
Huh.
so self taking care when we are empaths or highly sensitive people, which is another term,
Yes.
HSPs. I think it's important that we nurture ourselves and we take care of ourselves.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly because you'll reach a place where you can't you can't carry you. You can and carrying somebody isn't the right word, but you can't be on for the
No.
times and places you need to be on because you're just too depleted.
Do you know what? I learned something really interesting. So last summer, I went with my husband to Santa Fe, and it was a conference with his work team, and
Okay.
it was great. It was a free trip. I got a hotel room, and I love Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Well, we had dinner with his team, and it was a
Okay.
long dinner. It was one of those long dinners where drinks were flowing, and everybody's sitting at the table for hours and hours and hours. And I that night I just was so exhausted. I did not sleep well. And I got up in the morning and I had the worst headache and I just felt horrible. And I don't know how this came upon me. I think I Googled it. How do you take care of an empath? And do you know what it said? It said, take a hot bath. And
Huh.
I don't know if you've ever tried this, and I would recommend it. And this was one of those nice hotels that had a nice bathtub, right? So
Nice.
I took this nice hot bath. He went off to the conference and I took a bath. Oh my gosh, I was just totally readjusted. Like you talk about getting back to that level
Mm-hmm.
place.
Yep.
So if you're listening to this and you think you're an empath or you're just a HSP, a highly sensitive person, I recommend trying a bath,
Yes.
as a
I
healing.
agree. Baths used to be my Friday night thing when I was living in Texas. My daughter had moved out, she grew up and didn't need old mom anymore. But that Friday night things were a bath, and it was such a oh God, I looked forward to it so much. And I've heard people say it's the submersion in water. I've heard people say it's the heat, relaxing your muscles. I don't know what it is, but they're gorgeous, aren't they?
They are. I don't know what it is either. I don't know if it blocks your sensitivity or if it real like if we all are vibrational consciousness. We're vibrating.
Yes.
Does it realign us? Is it grounding us? Maybe.
Well,
You know.
that's interesting because vibrations and sound and things like that pass differently through water than they do through like air and stuff. So, wonder if it does. I mean, what you put out would reverberate against the side of the tub, come back in. Does it get translated or changed through the water? That's an interesting question.
It is. It's a wonderful question. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this in the comments section of YouTube, write down what you think it could be. What what is why is it soothing to take a bath, and what does it do? Because you're right, it does.
And
Um,
water and different waters have different properties. Like as you know, I live near the ocean now.
I
But I
know, I
also
know. Rub it in.
and
Good.
I also live near lakes and rivers and things like that. And when I go into the fresh water of the lake, it has the same effect, but differently than it does like the tap water of the tub. And when I stand in a river, it has the same effect or swim in the river, but different than because the moving, flowing water has a different feel than the standing, flowing, gentle movement of a lake or the tap water. And then the ocean water is different entirely from all those, but they all have the same effect. And it must be something to do with the water.
It must be. I was thinking, Kim, are you are you happy that you're an empath, or do you wish you weren't?
Now I'm happy because now I have more life experience. Now I have, well, I'm middle aged, so I have more maturity to just take a step back from like any emotions causing my thoughts and look at it from just a factual standpoint and just rationalize and reason my way through the feels, through the senses, through what I pick up. um as a woman, I found it very helpful and been very glad
Hmm.
because I have been approached by gentlemen, in like a club or a bar or party or through mutual friends or something. And the hair stands up on the back of my neck. And, that warning siren is going off in the inside of me. And, you make small talk and you're polite and you walk away and you don't take them up on their offer for coffee or whatever. And then later on down the road, you hear through the grapevine that they they weren't a very good person, that that they had a desire to cause harm.
Hmm. So it's
And
like it's part of your intuition. It's part of your instinct. Then you're
yes,
like a
and
sixth sense.
looking back on that, I'm really glad for it there, because they come across intellectually, there's not a darn thing wrong with them. They're easy on the eyes.
Oh,
They
oh
seem
yeah.
very pleasant. They seem very nice. They're charismatic. They're ticking all the boxes for what you want to see in an individual to be a friend or, you know, more or whatever. And when you find out later on that there's a reason you had a warning bell,
Yeah,
it's
I love that. I love that because, I was raised Catholic and I was taught to, always try to make it work. And so you see someone, right?
Mhm.
From visual appearances, this is someone you should be with, or
Oh
that you,
yeah.
but that's all in the visual, in the thought process. But if you let yourself feel how they make you feel, like even if it's not even directly to like a word they said, but just the feeling that they give you.
Yeah. It's
And
very different, isn't it?
it is different, and we're not taught. How come they don't give classes like that, right? When you were in kindergarten, they didn't teach you, well, class, let's sit down. They always teach you how to write and think and write, and everything's intellectualized. They never sit
Right.
there and say, let's sit down and practice feeling
Yeah.
and
Well,
trusting those.
ah, yes, very much so. And one of the things I've learned though is not I always assumed growing up that everybody was exactly like me in terms of like how you were and felt and picked up on other people. I assumed this was a normal trait and everybody was exactly like me. And what I've discovered is some people pick up more and some people don't pick up anything at all. And the people who don't pick up anything at all, is really hard to make them understand. Well, it's really hard to understand each other, especially if you're in a relationship, because you expect them to have a level of knowledge and understanding about you that they don't have, just honestly by their own traits.
Right.
But the way you are, it's like, how can you not know this about me? Like, how can you not? How is this like a mystery to you? How is this like, how can you not? Or vice versa. Like, they don't understand why you're so emotional and freaked out, and especially if they're like that and someone's like good on paper, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you should hang out with them more because they'll, they'll be able to help you with XYZ or whatever. And it's like, how do you explain to them? They give you the heebie jeebies. They, like there's something wrong with them. What? I don't know. I don't know, but it's not going to be good.
It's ironic you were mentioning that as a woman it has helped you more. I think our society lets women operate from that level more than men. We are not
I
allowed to be
agree.
that way, right? We're told no, no, no. And yet it really is a helpful tool that you have at your access
Hmm.
that can help you get through life. And but I think what I'd really like to share with the listeners is trusting it. I spent
Oh
so many
yeah.
years, I would hear it, and I'd go against it. Oh, no, no, you're being ridiculous. And all those messages you talked about in the very beginning you're just being too sensitive. You're just being
Yep.
too whatever. And I would dismiss it. And then sure enough, after that date or after that job, I took the job and I go, oh my God, this person's horrible. Right.
Yes. Yes. And it's like their rhetoric becomes your internal monologue of, you know, this isn't right. Oh, you're just being silly. Is then you don't need them to say it because your own brain starts saying it. And yes, people need to trust themselves. Your thinking, feeling, this is like part of your internal reaction to whatever the person or situation is for a reason. It just doesn't happen in a vacuum. It, you know, just doesn't happen for no reason. People need to trust themselves more. Stop being what other people think you should be and start being you. It's,
Exactly. I love it. I love it. That's exactly,
and,
I was
I like,
mentioning to you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, it's just, it's really kind of interesting when you think about it that people start imposing molds and boxes and how you should be on people. Like, who decided what the mold should be? Like, what made them? I get molds like don't go out and whack people in the head with something heavy because it hurts. Like there's ones that are common sense, but like other things like this, like what made them boss to decide what mold you're supposed to fit in? Or what made them decide they should even make a mold?
I agree.
I
It start
don't know.
yeah, societal, or and that's why we talked about earlier too. It's just always going within, and you have to start with yourself
Yes,
and trust yourself and learn to trust yourself. And that's kind of what I try to teach people: is to trust that impulse, that intuitive impulse that you have.
yes,
And when you draw, like when we were doing a semic drawing of these activities, I'm teaching you to just be reactive
yes,
based on what you feel, not on what some people are telling you, not how it's supposed to be, not that a
right.
tree is supposed to be shaped this color. Maybe not, maybe not.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And
So this
yeah.
this this has been a great chat. I loved having you at the show,
Oh,
at the
thank
retreat.
you.
And your energy was contagious. Um, I want to share with the listeners and then I'm going to give you one chance to share anything that we didn't cover. But I want to share with the listeners that I am doing this doodle drawing book club, and it came out of our retreat.
Mhm.
One day I sat there and I listened to the impulse, and I decided to read a chapter of my book while all you guys sat around and just doodled, right? Free subconscious drawing, just doodled. And when I was done, everybody was so excited because sometimes you drew something that was totally meaningless, or
Yep.
sometimes like whatever I was talking about, I would be talking about, a cantaloupe, and suddenly Melanie shows me her tablet and she's drawing a cantaloupe.
Yep.
And but doodling is just that it's getting in touch with that subconsciousness,
Yes.
the
And
subconscious side of you.
And it's funny because I went back and looked at some of the sketches I did, doodles, while you were talking from the retreat. And it's like, huh, that's interesting because that, if I was given it as an assignment to think about ahead of time and do something with this passage, that's what I drew wouldn't be what I drew. So what just sort of organically came out was very interesting.
It is.
And
It's like the dream state. You know how you have a dream and you're like, where did that come from?
oh yeah, 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 very much.
And yet it's
And
telling you something.
oh, very much. And then you have to wonder, is that something I need to explore? Is that an answer to something that's been undecided for me? Is that, have I made a decision and not, and I'm not aware of it because it's not the one I want, but it's the one that my brain and body and everything knows is best, but maybe
I
it's
love
not
that.
the one I want,
I know.
or
I love that you said, I love that you were inclusive too, that you said my brain, my body, and everything, because it's our whole selves. It's not just
yes,
our brain. It's coming from a level that's deeper. And so what I will share with the listeners, if you follow along, if you follow me on YouTube, you should get an email every morning at 6 a.m. saying the newest episode's out. And it's 15 minutes. You listen to a chapter while you doodle. And I'll give you some prompts. And at the end of each chapter, I also do it in my own words. So I'll read the chapter and then I'll say, this is what Chris meant. Because, I want to even be more clear. In my own words, this is what I meant when I said this. And you were saying too, you were saying earlier, and I want to share this with the listeners. You can also follow this on any channel. You said you listen to Podcast Addict?
add it. Yes. So your YouTubes go into become your podcast. Yes.
Yes, I do both.
So, I listen on not a mainstream one. It's Podcast Addict. I like it very much. I listen to you on that. I don't get a chance to. I listen to podcasts while I'm doing other things, so I
Right.
don't get a chance to sit and watch YouTube because that's kind of like a stationary thing. And but on my platform that well, not my platform, but on the platform I listen to, you can set up so you get notifications for the things you want to get notified on. So I can set it up so when your podcast comes and it'll say the spiritual artist has released a new episode, and I can go and see what the prompt is and get my
Right.
sketchbook ready
So I'm
and
glad you shared that because I've had people email and say, "Well, how does it work?" And I said, "Well, if you're following me, it just works. It
yeah,
just works."
it just happens. And and
Anyway, yeah.
the other thing too is I love that it's as a podcast. It's not like a live feed. So when you release it, it's not necessarily when I can do it. So I love that I can have, okay, I know that that's there. Okay, it's now 12:30 at night and I finally have a time to sit down in some quiet. I'm going to listen to that and do it. And that's not necessarily when you released it. So I love that it's there and waiting for everybody ready to do it.
Mm.
And I just want to be a shameless plugger. And for anybody who has not read CJ's book, The Spiritual Artist, I bought your book when you were doing a show in Mesquite.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we met for the first time. I don't know why you don't remember me. I mean, you
Sorry.
only met about 500 people that day, and we interacted for like a whole 30 seconds. But I bought it because Crystal was gushing so much about it. And I was like, all right. But for anybody who hasn't read it, it blew my mind. It's not what I expected. And it was very validating and very eye-opening on both just a person level and an artist level. But I think it's really interesting in that it could be applied to like any profession. You don't have to be an artist.
Right.
And So if you haven't read this book, do yourself a favor, get your hands on a copy and read it, because it'll be good for you. I was like, oh, whatever. And then I was really happy I read it.
You're so funny, Kim. I'll send you a check now.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for that shameless plug.
Oh,
Anyway, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners about
just
empaths? And
don't assume it's you. I'm so regretful that I spent so many years thinking I was just a weirdo, or like, you know, horrible at being a human, or like, because nobody else seemed to react the way I did, or be shy the way I was, or be you, be unashamedly, comfortably you. What's that saying? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Like,
yeah, exactly.
don't assume it's you. I mean, it might be you, but that's just who you are, and that's okay.
Mm.
Be you. You don't be them, because you're not them. Just be the person you were created to be,
Ooh, I love it.
and it'll be okay.
It will be okay, and that's exactly right. Well, thanks, Kim, for being on the show. I appreciate it. This has been so fun. I can't wait to work with you more and play with you more. And
Yes, it was
it,
great talking to you.
oh, I know it was. And listeners, once again, just follow me on YouTube and you'll get those announcements every day. Thanks for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. And interviews like this will be back in July. So this is the last one before we start the Doodle Book Club June
I'm
1st.
so excited for that. Okay.
Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.